Kelly?
You've obviously had stability with Haynes the last few years. Now you have a quarterback competition. What have you seen from those guys so far this spring? And do you feel close to maybe naming a starter? Is that something that's important to you?
Yeah, so right now it's early, right? And so it's, the ever-changing landscape of college football where staff changes, player changes, right? It's almost like you've got to take it year to year. So, you really look at our situation, we're putting a whole new offense in. And the best analogy that I use, especially with the quarterback, is, early on, a couple of them were struggling, right? Just learning the new offense, learning the verbiage. And I said, did you ever take a foreign language in high school? And they all said yes. And I said, well, could you fluently speak the language after 1 week, right? So when you think about what we're doing, this is high level, pro style offense with a lot of verbiage. There's a lot more on the quarterback's plate. So we have to be very conscious of that as we evaluate these guys, especially early in spring. We're in no position right now to concern ourselves with, hey, where are we at? It is a process and we'll go through it. This is truly 15 days of installation. So we're continuing to install, put more on their plate. As we go through the summer and then lead into training camp, we'll have a better idea. But I've been very pleased with the work ethic, the time that they're spending. And then again, we're going to make mistakes. And that's all part of the process and the challenge is that we don't make the same mistake twice. So where we sit now, got a really good room. This is the fun part of coaching. You get back to the basic fundamentals, the teaching of the position, all with new guys that don't have, in essence, don't have any experience, and you're installing a new offense. So it's been a lot of fun.
You have two guys returning that were here for the 25 season. How are they progressing with their development?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because what happens is they got comfortable in our old offense. So really everybody goes back to the starting block, right? And so everybody was starting from ground zero in a brand new offense. You look at the two guys that were here, they were continuing to progress, they were developing the way you would want them to. And then you bring a new guy in, and then you have a young freshman, right? So at the end of the day, all four guys walk in. The guy with the most college experience is Alberto, and in terms of his understanding, coming from where he came from. I think at the end of the day, it's a continuous process of, hey, are we getting better every day? And I think that I'm seeing that from each and every guy. The challenge is that we don't take any steps backwards. And continue to move forward, stay positive with them, knowing that we're going to make some mistakes, and those guys have all have done a good job with that.
Luke?
Thank you. You get to see Alberto, the quarterback group, every day. Fans haven't seen him yet. They're going to get a chance to see him on Saturday. What stands out about what he's done here in these 3 months, and what has kind of popped off the charts, maybe that you didn't know about him, that stood out once he got him?
Yeah, there was a lot of unknowns when he got here, right? And so you never know. But I do know this, that he's a high-level thinker. He can process information, and that's what we're looking for, especially in this offense with a lot of the adjustments we're going to have to make at the line of scrimmage with the quarterback. He, in essence, lives in this building. He loves football. And I think because of that, it gives him an opportunity to have success in an offense like this. He's a gym rat. He loves the game, asks a lot of questions, doesn't feel comfortable going to practice unless he has the answer. So elite release, gets the ball out quick, processes information, better athlete than maybe most people would give him credit for, moves around really well, sees the field. So he's been a lot of fun to work with. So he's one of those guys that challenges coaches, right? Like it makes us make sure that we're crossing all our T's and dotting all our I's. But he's got a chance to be a high-level player.
Najeh?
Coach, just want to ask you about the growth of Grady Adamson. We've been hearing about his name a little bit. What have you kind of seen from the redshirt freshman and what he's been doing this spring?
Yeah, so really liked recruiting him coming out of high school. Loved him in high school, and then I always say that every quarterback that's recruited out of high school is recruited based on potential, right? So you don't know what they're going to turn into. He is who I thought he was in terms of his work ethic. He's strong. He's an unbelievable athlete, quick release, really strong arm. And again, falls into that category of starting to feel real comfortable in our old offense, and now we put a new offense on him. So each and every guy has their bumps and bruises along the way. He doesn't let it bother him, which I appreciate as a coach, right? He's a coachable kid. that's really smart, and he'll continue to go through this process, and I think he's had a chance to be really good.
Charles.
Coach, you talked about like wanting to like fast forward to like the fall. Like, what is like that you're looking for when it comes to like this guy's going to be our starting quarterback?
Yeah, I think we're looking for consistency, right? A guy that can operate our offense. So a lot of changes, right? So it's going to be a high-level offense. We're a lot more detailed in terms of what we're going to do schematically. We're going to ask the quarterback to do a lot more than we did in the past. Obviously, these guys are different than what we're accustomed to the last 3 years with Haynes. I called Haynes the eraser, right? He could get you out of a bad play and make an explosive play. So for us right now, I think the biggest thing is that you have to create consistency. The only way you create consistency is you get reps, right? And with us installing new things every single day, there's limited reps on those concepts. So as we finish spring and those guys then flow into summer, they're going to get a ton of reps. And then as we go into camp, it's going to be, hey, who can consistently operate this offense at all levels, and that'll be our guy that is under center in the first game.
You kind of touched on this, but this year having a lot of guys with not too much experience, and last year you did have that experience. What's the biggest difference?
Yeah, the biggest difference is the comfort level of really everybody, right? So what happens is when you get a bunch of new faces, and then you got a bunch of new faces in the quarterback room, the comfort level is everybody's kind of looking around like, hey, who's going to take that leadership role? I mean, at the end of the day, Haynes was the leader of this football team. Obviously had a lot of success, but the success he had started in that locker room. So now, hey, who's going to take the bull by the horns? And I think that's the biggest difference. As a staff, you know what Haynes was capable of. Right now, today, we don't know what we're capable of. So I think there's a little bit of unknown. Whereas you go into a season last year where you've had a guy that was starting for 2 years, you know what you're going to get from the guy. And right now, as we sit here after 12 practices in spring, we have an idea, but we don't know.
Ken?
You mentioned Alberto's high-level thinking as two things. Can you give us an example of kind of the way you see that, and then also just kind of what has been his level of consistency in the reps he's gone?
Yeah, first of all, he's a guy that every single day we install, right? So there's a teaching progression, right? So they'll get the script, okay? They'll come into meetings, we'll show them pictures, right? We'll go through the reads, right? Okay? He will never ever miss a detail on a picture. So if it's supposed to be 4 scat and it says 5 scat on the page, he'll call us out, right? So he's very detailed. It's really important to him. And then when you start having conversations and you start watching film with him, he can see things that other guys can't, right? He can see what they're trying to do defensively. He's probably the most comfortable at the line of scrimmage, changing the protection, knowing what's going to happen before it happens. And I think high-level thinkers do that, right? You have the answers to the test before the test, and he's one of those guys.
Kelly?
With Coach Godsy coming in as offensive coordinator, what has that transition been like for you? You've obviously worked in a lot of different offenses, but just kind of how's that relationship building and how you guys?
Yeah, it's been awesome. Obviously here's a guy that's been in the National Football League for 15 years, very well-respected coach, has had a lot of success. I knew of him, but didn't really know him. Didn't really have a relationship, but we knew of each other because we played against each other. But kind of knew what we were going to get when he came in, just because I know people that obviously have worked with him. Talk about smart, he's really smart, okay? And he knows how to put an offense together. He's much like Alberto in terms of being able to see it. We're out at practice, in the middle of practice, and he can see everything that's going on, and he'll all of a sudden make a quick change there, just based on what the defense is trying to do to us. His work ethic is unbelievable. He's a grinder. But for me, it's been a little bit of, for lack of a better term, refreshing, because I grew up in old pro style offense, right? So a lot of the language that he's speaking is the language that I spoke most of my career, right? And then you adapt to new things that transpire when you get into different offenses. But man, he's been awesome to work with. And I think as we move forward, I think the players are going to see and understand, okay, he's going to try to put us in a position to be successful and have all the answers to the test.
Go Luke, and then back over here, Brad.
Going back to Alberto, obviously the last name carries a lot of weight right now. How much have you seen, and I know external expectations don't matter, But is there a sense that this guy gets maybe unfairly judged for what he can be, given the last name and what his brother did last year?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I always say that expectations, right, are on the outside, standards on the inside, right? And we have a standard in our room, okay? The stuff that is said outside is irrelevant to us, right? Naturally, we understand that because of the success that his brother had, he's going to be put in a different category, right? He loves it. And I can tell that he loves it because he's competitive as hell. And I can promise you, okay, I don't know how much higher you can get than his brother, going to be the #1 pick and won the Heisman. Somehow, some way, he wants to find a way. So at the end of the day, he knows it, he understands it, but he's a level-headed kid. And he doesn't concern himself with those exterior things. He knows that every single day he's got a job to do, and he does it at a high level every day.
And just wanted to follow up on a guy that you've been talking about, Haynes King. Why is he going to be successful at the next level as a quarterback?
Yeah, having the opportunity to work with him, and then knowing what it takes to be successful at that level. The guy's going to walk in the locker room, everybody's going to like him. He has natural leadership skills. Athleticism speaks for itself, but I think what happens in the National Football League is that the guys that have high football IQs stick around for a long time. They carry themselves the right way. He's well respected by everybody in the building. It's going to happen wherever he ends up. The challenge he has is, who's going to draft him, right? I always say it doesn't matter where you get drafted. You want to get drafted to the right place. I've had numerous phone calls from coaches, GMs, scouts. Everybody's excited about him. It'll be interesting to see who pulls the trigger, and whoever does is getting a hell of a football player and a great man.
It's time for a couple more, so with Rod, and we'll finish up with the coach.
Probably the wide receiver room had the largest turnover on the squad. Got a couple of transfers, a former cornerback, and a couple of kids that didn't play last year. How has the chemistry been between the quarterbacks in that group?
Yeah, so it's, the issue we're having right now, we've got some guys out, right? So we're at limited numbers at the receiver position. And I think the biggest challenge for the quarterback is, hey, don't get frustrated with that, right? We got limited guys out there. I think we've got 4 guys now that aren't practicing. I think it was maybe 5 today. So we don't let that affect us in the way we practice. But the guys that are out there working, have done a great job, and the quarterbacks are comfortable with them. They kind of know what they can do, what they can't do, and they've allowed that to be able to use that as a driving force, right? Hey, continue to challenge those guys. Our quarterbacks are great communicators with the receivers, right? So if something transpires that they didn't expect to happen, they're gonna communicate with them. As we continue to get more reps and everybody gets more comfortable, I think by the time we hit training camp, we're going to be very excited about that group.
Najeh, if you want to wrap us up.
Sure. Coach, I want to ask you just what do you kind of want to see from this, quarterback room on Saturday in the spring game? And then the second question, just tell us a little about Cole Bergeron, 4-star. You guys ended up getting him late in the cycle. Just tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, so I had a relationship early on with Cole and recruited him. And, like I said, we live in this landscape of college football where you don't know who's coming and who's going. And Cole was a guy that was high on our board. I think he's got a bright future. He can spin it as good as anybody I've been around. As we go into this scrimmage Saturday, I don't know that it's going to be exactly the same as all of our scrimmages in the past. I think the one thing I'm looking for is, hey, who can go operate the offense? And there's a lot of things that go into that. There's variables that come into play that no one in the stands is ever going to know. Hey, are we getting the call? Are we making the right call? Is the cadence good? Are we changing the protection? All operationally. I'm not right now concerned about the result, right? I'm talking about the operation to make sure that they can run this offense at a high level from a communication standpoint. If they can do that and they can protect the football, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, Coach.